Hey nerds, what's up? Today I'm going to talk about why I won't be continuing with the Dresden Files. See you after the jump. So please don't kill me. Let's start off by saying something right away so you guys don't get mad. This is not a bad book. I did not think it was a bad book. I thought it was a pretty good book. But there are some reasons that I'm just not interested in continuing the series. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But I just want to make sure, because I know there are a ton of Dresden File fans. Don't worry, this is not going to be some video trashing your book. Not at all. But I am going to talk about some things that I didn't like about it, or some reasons that I'm not going to continue. So as always, let's start with the positives of this book. One thing I really liked was the tongue-in-cheek nature of it. I really liked Harry as this PI who's really a wizard, like a wizard for hire. It was very funny. It played really well with those kind of detective tropes in a way that was clearly purposeful, and so I really liked that. I'm a big fan of Psych and the BBC Sherlock, so this whole, a consultant for the police force is something I'm very familiar with, and usually something I honestly really like. It definitely gave me those kind of Sherlock and Psych vibes, even down to the one officer who's a fan and the other officer who's the skeptic. It was a trope in a good way where it's I know what this is, it's comforting, it's fun, and I'm always gonna like it. I honestly really liked the world building. I wasn't expecting the world building to honestly be as strong as it was. I like this idea of the council, and I like this idea of the different factions of mythical people and, the vampires and all that kind of stuff that's going on. I thought it was really rich without being overbearing. The world felt there, and I was impressed by that because I wasn't necessarily expecting it. I also liked the serial nature of this. I wasn't surprised at all when I found out there's a TV show of it because it reads like a TV show. It's very, very serial in nature. I do know that the wider story gets more in depth later on, but as it stands right now, it feels kind of like one of those TV show crime shows. And honestly, that kind of leads me to why I'm not continuing this book anymore, this book series. It's just not my thing anymore. Look, in high school, like many of us I'm sure that are my age, I went through a huge Law & Order SVU phase. My friend and I would watch this all the time, and this book reminded me so much of my SVU days. Honestly, if I had read the Dresden Files in high school, I would have been all over it. But the thing is, I just stopped watching those kind of shows as they just don't interest me anymore. And so reading this reminded me so much of that, even down to the details, a dead prostitute in the beginning. I'm pretty sure there was a joke. It was either an article or an SNL skit. I couldn't find it. Talking about how every Law and Order SVU or crime shows in general always have to do with a dead prostitute. There was the brothel. It was just very classic, those sort of things, which I used to enjoy a lot and just aren't for me anymore. So this isn't a value statement on the book. It's not this is a bad book. No, it's just something that doesn't interest me anymore. Just kind of a phase I got over. And honestly, it was already an uphill battle with it because I'm not an urban fantasy person in general. So the fact that it's also urban fantasy is something that just doesn't really interest me. Trust me, Sanderson, who is one of my favorite authors, his Era 2 Mistborn is pretty much my least favorite thing he's written, even though I still enjoyed it, simply because I don't like the urban setting. If Sanderson can't do an urban setting that I love, I feel not a lot of people are going to be able to. And so it was just kind of the combination of stuff I'm just not as interested in anymore and a setting I'm not interested in anyway that make me feel I don't really need to continue. Additionally, it has the classic trope of the sexist guy who thinks he's traditional and wants to still be a gentleman, kind of white knighting. Now, people did warn me before I started this book. They were really nervous after my Witcher review. They're by the way, Harry is sexist, but it's purposeful. It comes out in later books. You gotta trust us. And honestly, I was glad for the warning, but I think it was obvious in this book too. They did have a few females call Harry out on what he was saying, but the problem is, even though it's clearly intentionally by the author, and I actually understand it because it's a very classic detective sort of attitude, it just doesn't make it any easier to read from. Because it's only one perspective in this book, I'm tired of reading about the white knighting. When you have to deal with it in real life, it's just not as enjoyable to read about the guy who's I guess I'm just old fashioned. It's just annoying. And so even though it's purposeful and I didn't hold it against the book, it just doesn't make it any easier. When we talk about a sexist character like Jezzel from The First Law, he was just one of many perspectives. So it's much easier to deal with that. Also, Abercrombie's just really good at writing. which is like different. But like I talked about this in my Rosewater review, it's just hard to read from those perspectives. So all of that combined, I'm just like not interested in continuing. I know me saying this is gonna make people super sad because I already said it on my Instagram and people were like, no, you've gotta keep reading. No, it gets so good around book 5, like you will be blown away. Guys, I'm not gonna read 4 more books to get to book 5. Like, it's again, not a value statement. This book was fine. It's just not necessarily a concept that is very intriguing to me right now. And I don't doubt that the overall plot gets very cool because I was very into the world building. I just don't think it's worth my time investment to keep going when I know it's probably not gonna be like knock me out of the park sort of thing, just because of the setting it is in and the character of Harry Dresden. So ultimately, I am not surprised that this book series is so successful. I'm not surprised that it has an adaptation. I'm not surprised that people love it. Honestly, there are several people in my life that I would recommend this to without reservations because I know they would love it. Again, not a value statement on it. I completely understand why it's so popular, just not necessarily for me. And I hope you guys can forgive me for that. As always, if you like my reviews and you like my fantasy discussions, please subscribe. That is the best way you can support me. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, as well as like star ratings and some rants about other nerdy stuff, you can follow me on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.